Hey, are you ready to grow your business? You have checked out the number one resource for business leaders, entrepreneurs, startup founders, and managers. And we're going to teach you how to grow and scale your business with real actionable steps. There's no fluff in this podcast. It's just good advice. Check out this episode. If you're a first-time listener, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And if you enjoy this episode, leave us a 5-star review. Today's episode is with Justin Balunsat, and it's part of our series from our PODMAX Global event. If you didn't check it out, our PODMAX event, it is an event that happens a few times during the year where people meet as business owners and entrepreneurs, and they really talk about what needs to happen to grow and scale our businesses. I had a chance as one of the guest hosts to bring on a few different incredible business owners to the show. One of them was Justin. We're going to be talking about that entrepreneurial life and how you can actually grow your business into something meaningful. Hey, check out this episode. Justin has an incredible perspective, not just on life, but on business. Here comes your good advice. Hey, thanks for checking out another episode of the Good Advice Podcast. We're going to be talking about how you can live divine today, which you might be thinking like, wait, what's this episode about? Where we're going? I want to introduce you to my friend, Justin Balunsat. He is a property real estate investment guy who, man, he's going to be diving into really what does it look like in the entrepreneurial world to make some money, grow your business, and have a better quality of life. Justin, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Man, I'm wonderful, man. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation, to the chat. Sorry, some background noise with the dogs.
Hey, we've all done it, man. I think my puppy is like locked away in a room so that she doesn't make lots of noises. So,
and I hear my family grabbing the dogs right now.
Yeah. No worries. I mean, that's the entrepreneurial life. You know, there's not a lot of sheen and shine. We kind of just jump into it and make it happen.
Yeah,
so
make it happen. Exactly.
So Justin, you and I were talking a little bit before I hit record, and for the listeners who are tuning in maybe for the first time, giving a little bit of context, we're currently at the PODMAX Global event, and it's an event where entrepreneurs and business owners are all jumping in, sharing some expertise, and really growing together. And so that's how you and I got connected. And so for the listeners, definitely check out the other episodes as well. But Justin, talk to me a little bit. First of all, where are you located right now?
Right now I'm in New Jersey, Western New Jersey, out near Pennsylvania. We're kind of out in the sticks, farmland out here.
Hey, I love it, man.
Yeah.
And you were telling me before I hit record that you had in another life, you were in the corporate world. And man, this story, I've heard this story so many times, and you kind of saw the light. And I don't want to spoil the story. So you go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about how Just Devine Properties came about.
Yeah. So like you said, I started my corporate career in hotels in Manhattan, basically. Actually, I started in Hawaii, but I got to Manhattan. That's really where I thought, man, I'm going to grow here. I'm going to go to the biggest, baddest city in the world, and I'm going to make a name for myself, and I'm going to climb one of these big companies. And so I started climbing that ladder little by little, rung by rung, up. And at first it was awesome. You know, it was comfortable. I had everything I needed. Benefits were there. I felt regarded, in a sense. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then life happens. Then things like start to shift, including your mind. For me, I just matured a little bit. I started figuring out where I wanted to be when I retired, and I started looking at long-term things and realizing I wasn't going to get there chasing this 401k dream and
the 3% annual increase in salary if you're lucky.
Exactly. So real estate was something that had always interested me. Just looking around and doing a little bit of research, you can find out that it's pretty lucrative industry if you're good at it and if you have the right connections. And so I tapped into that and there was a moment in time where I had to say, enough is enough, and you gotta cut the umbilical cord and you gotta jump. And so I jumped and I left. I resigned from as a director of banquets at a Manhattan hotel that had just opened up, gorgeous hotel, doing what I thought I was born to do, running events and rubbing elbows with some of the rich and famous, and it was all for nothing. Not for nothing, but it was just not fulfilling. It wasn't fulfilling in the way I wanted it to be.
Totally. And I get it. And it's always like funny, these conversations, because like I never want to, because I mean I have like Walmart headquarters in my backyard. So like I never want to come across as like I disdain corporate America. But man, your story is so similar to so many other people where, it sounds like you weren't really mistreated, that you had a great experience. It just when you evaluated where you wanted to go in life, it just didn't line up, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it sounds like you kind of had sort of this awakening. I don't know if the awesome beard came before or after that.
Well, to touch on the beard, it came after. It's kind of my like, and I've been growing my hair and my beard since I left May 2nd, 2018, 2017. So yeah, I even have the date. Like that's how important it is to me though. Like that it's that's when you're all in, you know what I mean? I know when I left. But yeah, the corporate world, I learned an incredible amount in the corporate world. I learned how to be a businessman, how to talk, how to carry myself, how to be around certain types of people. You learn time management. You learn how to be organized. You learn a ton of things. So don't get me wrong, but that wasn't good enough for me.
Right. So what was it though? Because here's what's interesting is the start of your story is like, I would say millions of people who they talk about, okay, this is not where I want to go. This is not leading me where I want to go. But I think 99.9% of people, that's where the conversation just ends. It's like, I've always loved the story of the guy a friend of mine who was like, I hate my job. It's miserable. It's not taking me anywhere. And I was like, what are you going to do? And he's like, I think I'll work here for 5 more years. Like that's what we do though, right? It's It's like, we don't do anything. But what was it about you because that's the magic is it wasn't just feeling like that, like everybody else. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to actually get after it. I'm going to jump into this. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I think the first thing was educating myself, clearing my mind of what I thought I knew. And for me, in my story, that came with sobriety. And so when I quit drinking, my mind has just sharpened day after day after day. And that's just for me. You know what I mean? That's not everyone, but I think that's what separates me. And that was a turning point for me. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, it's interesting you say that because I'm calling back to another guy who's a really great sales guy. He has a very similar story, was going totally sober. And it's like these things that I guess these things we enjoy. And not to equate anyone's sobriety with like watching Netflix, but we all have these things that like we fill our mind with or that are kind of quiet distractors. It's interesting what you're saying because it trends with what I've heard other people say as well. But keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no. Yeah. It's just, for me, it was clouding me and it was taking up so much of my time and energy for me drinking. And I was in the industry, food and beverage is a drinking industry. Let's be real about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat shit. I've also learned to just be straightforward. Yeah. I've also learned to just cut to the chase because then I'm going to know, are we aligned? Are we not? Do I want to spend more time with you? Do I not? Are you worth it or are you not? So, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
Oh no, this is good. I'm with you. I mean, it's well, and here's what I'm getting from it is, you're in an industry where, if you were like a monk, it would be easy to be like, yeah, I'm cutting alcohol entirely. Right. But here's the thing. This is what I think is an interesting insight. I think it's powerful for the listeners too, is what you're pointing out is like even jumping. It's not even about entrepreneurship in going that route, but if you're going to make the changes you want out of life, sometimes the circumstances you're in aren't going to be naturally productive to that change. I mean, like you said, you were in an industry that is very much defined by food and beverage and drinking. And so I like that angle that you've come at is you're not just making changes, but you're making changes in spite of your environment at sort of keeping you from doing that or trying to keep you from doing that.
Absolutely.
So you made the choice. You said, "Hey, now do you remember the day? Like, was there like a moment? Like, did you get like a pay stub and you were like, what am I doing? Like, what was it on that day that made you say, okay, yeah, now I'm doing this?"
I had worked in Manhattan in 6-7 hotels over the last 13, 14 years, drinking heavily for 13 of those years at the time. Never once was reprimanded. Never once. There was never an issue. I never got caught drinking because Lord knows we drank on the job. I mean,
wow.
That's your management. And I don't want to go. That's not what we're here to talk about.
No, yeah, but I mean, but I'm not even now. I'm even thinking like, man, that's just another piece of it. Is people who it's not just like, man, I think people are naive to think that they can have everything they want long term and be in a job that doesn't appreciate them. And it's not just about appreciation. It's your managers cared so little about your professional journey that no one pulled you aside and said, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
That's what I get from that story.
They fed it. Right. And they fed it, and they were part of it. So I got sober, right? And I'm still in the industry. And I get my first 10-day or 30-day action plan. I get written up. Yeah. Something about some napkins getting lost or something. I'm the director of banquets and I'm getting written up. I'm getting pulled into HR's office and I'm laughing. I'm literally laughing in their faces. Like, I cannot believe this is happening right now. To myself, like, I've put so much into this career. I've done so much for what I'm doing. And for something so trivial to put me on a 30-day action plan after, and this hotel was understaffed and it was a new opening and there's 1,000 things going on.
Yeah.
And so I got my action plan. I had a very heated conversation with everyone in the room. I slept on it. I talked to my fiance, Devin, and I went in the next morning and I resigned. And that's it.
And it's so funny because like I'm trying to keep us on point here, but I work so much in the leadership space. I'm just horrified. You know, it's like there's so many boxes that are checked there. That's like, who wouldn't? Well, then I say who wouldn't quit, but then again, once again, there's plenty of people who are like, this is outrageous. Right. I'm gonna work there 5 more years. So
right. Well, and I was making $150,000 a year. Plus bonus. I wasn't. I was living okay. You know what I mean? Like, I was making the most money, and I don't mind talking about that because that's part of my story. But I was living okay. There's a lot of people who wish that they could make $100,000 a year,
sure,
and you can make a good living off that, and you can live well like that. And I was willing to throw all of it away, every last dime of it away, to start over because happiness is what was important to me.
Yeah. Well, so you left the job. Now, did Just Devine happen immediately, or talk to me a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey?
It was, I believe we had just started it. I think we started it in March. And Devin and I were kind of, she was also she worked for a financial firm in Manhattan. And so she was feeling the same way I was feeling. And we started, this entrepreneurial mindset started kind of shifting us. And so we were trying to figure out who's going to go first. We probably should be smart about it. We don't want to be dumb and make emotional decisions and both jump out of our jobs. We're going to be entrepreneurs, rah, 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 and fall flat on our face and not, so we made sure that we did it smart. This happened to be like the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was pretty apparent, I think, at the time that it's a good time for you to go. It's toxic environment. It's clearly not much has changed even when you got sober.
Yeah.
It's there were just so many things pointing to it. Why don't you go first? So Devin stayed at her job for actually another year, and then they were acquired, and she actually found a way out kind of seamlessly too. So yeah.
Now, I mean, you've chosen an industry that, I mean, I talked to a lot of different entrepreneurs who have, they all have like their different businesses they've been thinking about, real estate, investment group, investment firm. Obviously you're in the Northeast. That is I'm sure there's no shortages of businesses who all want a piece of the pie. Talk to me a little bit about how you settled on that industry and what that's looked like.
Well, I kind of, like I touched on, I kind of always had real estate was in my mind. I liked it. I knew it was lucrative. I liked the idea of making passive income with rentals. I liked the idea of owning property and having money in property. Like I was getting those initial ideas of what investing means. And so, that was really it. It was just a hunch. It was just something that I thought was kind of cool. But I needed to educate myself, and I needed to find a group of people that I could trust, because real estate can be kind of shady. You know what I mean? You don't know who you're going to get. So I needed a group of people that I can trust. So, our story, Devin and I, we joined an educational group, a real estate educational group, and there's a bunch of them out there, and everyone's got an opinion on them, and we chose to do it, and I'm glad as hell that we did. It was an investment in education. It was an investment in myself. I have no regrets in doing it, and I think, of that group of people that are in that network, I think we're, one of the more elite, doing some of the best projects and networking with some of the best people in the industry nationwide.
Well, so what's your journey been like? I mean, you've been in business for 3 years, is that right?
We've been in business for 3 years. We spent about a year just in education, doing curriculum, just getting into houses. Flipping wasn't what we wanted to do initially. We wanted to jump right into passive stuff, multifamily type stuff, house hacking.
Yeah.
But we started kind of seeing that we could flip and get big chunks of money and then reinvest that into passive income. And so that's kind of what we're doing right now. So we bought 2 properties a year in. They were next door to each other in Springfield, New Jersey. They were big jobs for first home flippers. We knocked them down and rebuilt them, basically from the foundation. And so we learned a ton. We learned a ton in one project.
Well, and it's interesting, you said you weren't really planning on doing flipping, and that's kind of what you fell into. I feel like that's a pretty common trend for a lot of business owners is, you kind of go in wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and like really excited about, I'm going to sell this or offer this or do this. Or, this one person has done it in a way that's very lucrative, so I'm going to jump right into that. Right. And then you kind of finagle yourself into a totally different. It feels like flexibility is a big piece of being a good entrepreneur.
100%. I agree with that 100%. I also think that you create your own luck. You got to put yourself in positions to be successful. You got to put yourself in front of people, and you can't be scared to ask for stuff. A perfect example is Jesse Itzler. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a mentor of mine. And I heard him speak at an entrepreneurial camp. One of his suggestions was to DM some people. Like, if you want to get in front of someone, DM them, because a lot of times they won't check their own emails. They have admins to do a lot of their things, but they will look at their own DMs and at least engage a little bit in their own social media. So I DM'd him after the conference. He hit me back, and then I end up going down there, sitting courtside with him, talking business at the Golden State Warriors Atlanta Hawks game. And and our relationship is, grown little bits and pieces by then. He's a real busy dude, but, I took my shot. You can't be afraid. You gotta put it all on the line, right? Are you all in or are you not all in? Are you willing to do everything or are you not willing to do everything? If you got the back door still open and you're willing and you got a plan B and you're willing to go, you're never going to make it, right? Like you gotta be all in. There's just no other way around it,
Yeah, it's the whole burn the ships mentality, right? Like I know it's similar for me. Whenever I started my business, it was the same deal. I mean, I quit my job and my wife told me she was pregnant like the next day. And so it was like, oh, I have to make this work.
Right. When failure is not an option, you'll make it happen.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too. And I don't know how you feel about this. It's, when we talk about, I don't know how honest people are with themselves. Cause you're talking about, because obviously you had the self-awareness of, I have to make these steps. I have to take my shot, all these things. Feels like a lot of people, especially in the entrepreneurial world, man, we want the excitement of the successful business, but we're not necessarily willing to pay the cost, make it happen, and literally pay the cost. I mean, you guys jumped into an education group, which some can be incredibly pricey. Some people are not willing to do that. They're not willing to front any upfront costs. Also, it feels like some people just aren't willing to stretch themselves and grow. It's like, for example, when I was growing my business, I was getting out meeting so many people. And I had a friend of mine who was like, okay, how do I grow my business? But I don't want to have to go out and meet people. I don't want to have to talk to people. I don't want to have to, I don't want to have to do all these things that you have to do. And I remember thinking like, dude, you're blinded if you think that you can grow a sustainable business without doing some of these things. What do you think about that? I mean, do you feel like people are, how can someone move from being a bit unaware to being more present of mind, willing to take those kinds of steps for their business?
I think it's important. I think you touched on process. I think what I've learned, and I'm still continuing to learn, is you have to enjoy the process of what you're doing. And you've probably heard that 1,000 times, but, you loving the process, which means failing a shitload of times, which means having to do the little things, is huge. Because if you don't love the process, you're just never going to get there. But it's got to be that, again, you got to be all in about that. And the mindset, I think, is surrounding yourself with people who do it better than you. Don't be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah. Well,
humble yourself. Humble yourself. It's not about you. You don't know it all. Realize that you don't know it all. If you can realize that I don't know, you can start. Right. I think Buddha said that, knowing that I don't know is huge. So I don't know how far I can go. I don't know what my potential is. If I think I know what my potential is, I'm setting my own limits. Like, what can I do? I don't know, but I can work really freaking hard. Well, and I can work really freaking hard at something I love to do.
And I love you said you're putting ego aside, being humble enough to realize, how do I need to grow? How do I need to change? There's a really great book called, E-Myth Revisited. And it's on basically a failing business. Really great book.
Yep.
So I'd given that book to somebody who was struggling in their business, and they were like, man, this book just really isn't for me. I need something else. And I was like, well, what about it isn't for you? You have a failing business and the book is about a failing business. And he was like, oh yeah, right. I didn't really think of it that way.
Yeah.
But his ego, go ahead.
It's hard to look at yourself in the mirror. Yeah. It's hard to admit and accept reality. Nobody lies to us better than we lie to ourselves. You know what I mean? So surrounding yourself with people that can give you the hard truth sometimes is important. Someone who's going to give you the hard truth, but who's still on your side. So there's at least a reason why they're giving you that feedback.
You sound like a great networker, like not just building those people who can give you that feedback, but it sounds like you do a good job of making the connections you need to make, Whereas a lot of not just entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, the only connection they're interested in making is the warm connection for the sale. Mm-hmm. And so I like to explain to someone, hey, actually, a lot of my time is spent with people who aren't directly buying from me. That's a foreign concept, I think, for a lot of people. But it sounds like you spend a lot of time connecting with people, making the right relationships, building the right connections. Is that right?
That's 100% right. I mean, I think you need to. You don't know who's going to connect your dots. Just because they're not in real estate doesn't mean they don't know 10 other people who might have properties they want to sell. Or maybe they're a divorce attorney and they got a house. People are going through divorce and they got a house they want to get rid of now. It's a horrible thing. I'm just giving some hypothetical things, but you just never know who you're going to meet. You don't know where your stories are going to cross. You don't know why people show up in your life. I have a big faith, and I'm a Christian, and I believe that that there's a higher power and things are working. You know what I mean? And I don't always know. Again, I go back to I don't always know. Most of the time, I don't know. So, that's just me. I don't know that who I'm going to run into and how they're going to affect my life.
But you say that and you're so comfortable though. Like you're like, I have no idea, but you say it with such, oh man, yeah, everything's going to be okay. Whereas some people, they'd be like, I don't know. And I'm freaking out. Like, is that your faith? That's like giving you that security. I mean, how can you feel that way, but be so calm, cool, collected during COVID and be like, yeah, like, man, it's good. I mean, what is that?
It's putting yourself in uncomfortable positions a lot.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm an athlete, right? And so I'm big on mindset on that side of it too. And I don't think that they're far off from business and athletics. I think your mind is a muscle. And if you can push it past comfort, whether you're doing physical activity or whether you're buying $1 million property for the first time, which I haven't done, I think it's how do you get past that comfort or that uncomfortability? How do you become comfortable being uncomfortable? And so I train myself physically as well as mentally. Looking in the mirror often is a real uncomfortable thing to do. But I think that you learn to manage your uncomfortability and your anxieties the more that you are uncomfortable.
I love that. It's kind of like you're just getting reps in, it's like,
that's it. The more you do it.
Yeah. It's like, just like when you have a hard conversation with someone, I mean, the more you do it, the easier and the better you get at it. Yeah. But it feels like a lot of times we're just scared to have that first go, I guess. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. I mean, when we bought our first 2 properties, I went through paralyzing anxiety, literally paralyzing. I just left my job. Devin was still, working mad hours at her job. I was home in my apartment in Jersey City, making decisions about real estate, talking to banks and talking to investors and talking to, and the realization that people are lending me a lot of money that I'm going to be responsible for the first time.
Yeah.
Paralyzing. When I say paralyzing, like literally I could not move. I'm looking at my computer and I got Devin on speakerphone. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do. Are we going to make it? I don't know. And that was my first real experience with like paralyzing anxiety. So I can relate, and I still get moments like that. I'm not cured of anxiety because I go through it a lot. And I would be the first one to tell you that I don't handle anxiety very well, because I also battle with anxiety and depression. They kind of go hand in hand. So I do, it's just mindset is so important. Your mind is just so powerful. It is just so powerful. And I don't think people realize or understand that you're just how powerful your mind can be. How David Goggins, and I don't know if you're familiar with David Goggins, a Navy. He was like a Navy SEAL. He's ultra marathon guy now, but he's big on mindset too. And I don't know where I was going with this, but I'm just all
No,
in on
yeah,
the
yeah.
mindset.
I'm
You know
with
what I
you.
mean? I'm just
Sure.
all
Yeah.
in on the mindset, and
But
pushing yourself past comfort.
see, this is like the underside, the underbelly of the entrepreneurial world that I don't think gets enough of. There's not enough time spent here. Like, and here's, I think we superficially hit on this. Like, people, they put out like the Facebook post, hey, mindset's everything. People are like, yeah, love it, yes. But we don't really like get into the nuts and bolts of this. Like, you talked about anxiety, you talked about depression, and these are things that are so tangible to entrepreneurs, myself included, when not just when you're staring at a bank account, but when you're thinking about like where you want to go and how much harder it is to actually get there than maybe you thought it was. I don't know how well we nurture conversations on this topic, because if we look at like Facebook, you look at LinkedIn, you look at any social media posts, what people like to talk about is that last step of the journey when they made it big, and it's, what's interesting is like the 5-year journey becomes a 1-paragraph post that's, hey, I was working at my job, I was miserable, I quit, and now I have the 7-figure, 8-figure, whatever dream. And nothing's included. There's no meat in between. And so whenever we fall into these hard times, and again, I don't even mean financially, I mean like mentally, like tough times, I think the disservice we do to entrepreneurs is, or at least for myself, it's like, am I the only one who feels this way? Like, or like, what's going on here? Like, why do I feel, to use your words, so paralyzed or so crippled? So I think you talking about that is powerful for my listeners, because it's encouragement to know that it is okay. It's okay to feel that way and to not be where you want to be just yet.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, it's a blessing, I think, to not be where you want to be just yet.
See, that's an interesting spin on it, that it's actually maybe even for your own good that you're not getting there as quick as you are, as you want to get there.
Right.
So.
Right. And for me, God's not done with me until I meet him again. So I got a lifetime of work to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just work. It's just work. Just work. Just work.
I love it.
It's hard work.
How has your business been affected by COVID? We got to talk about COVID, of course.
Yeah, of course. What a crazy time we're living in.
I know some businesses are flourishing right now. I know other businesses are like literally do not know where the next sale is going to come from. Talk to me a little bit about what's been your mind game, your mindset on navigating running a business. Because you started 3 years ago, but I've known people who started their business 3 months ago who were like, why did I do this? What's your mental game been like? How have you had to pivot as a business? What's that look like for you?
You lean on your resources, you lean on those who are around you, and the network that you've built. If you don't have a big network, if you don't have a big network, then you got to continue networking. There's still, you got to get creative. I think that a huge thing with entrepreneurs is creativity, and that doesn't mean you can draw well and paint. That how are you going to get around some of these issues? How do you creatively solve these issues? And so there's platforms, but for us, we had a property. We were ready to go. We were going to have a variance meeting in front of the board, and COVID hit in March, pushed us all the way back until end of May. So that's 3 months. The project we should have been done with this summer will now be done in end of November to beginning of December. But I mean, what do? You can't control that. Right. Am I gonna beat myself up and my business partners because COVID happened and let my anger and irritation with everything affect me? No. But what I did do is every single time there was a grant available, I applied for it. Every time that there was money available, I applied for it. Every time that, for me personally, or for me, or for Just Devine Properties, I went to it. I educated myself. I figured out what people are doing. I listened to people that know more than me about what's available. Now, I didn't get many of those grants for the company, but we were in an okay place. We weren't dying. We're okay. So luckily, we didn't have to change a whole lot. We just had to be patient. We just have to be patient. And as things opened up, we needed to be ready to go. When the doors opened up, I wanted to be the first one in. When the things were when stuff started moving again, I wanted to have all my seamless. I didn't want any issues, no hiccups. We're going forward with this project. I'm not selling it. We have room in our budget and what we're looking at. As long as we're ready to go when the time comes. When it's time to shoot, you got to pull the trigger. You can't hesitate. And our time frame just got a lot shorter. So I had to be that much more prepared. I had to be that much. It gave us time to prepare, finish, essentially designing the whole house, making decisions that we normally wouldn't make months. We just made them. So basically, the house is built. The house is built in our head. So now we just execute.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I like that advice of, you can't get so hung up on things you can't control. Because I think everyone sort of had this shell shock of COVID hitting, but I think some people moved past that quicker than others, whereas some people really sat on the woe is me and woe is my business, and not for good reason. I mean, not that it wasn't for good reason. I mean, some people's businesses they had built for years, they were feeling it disintegrate.
Scary.
So I empathize. But there were also people who they were like, okay, what do I do here? What's the action that I take here? So I think that's good advice, not just for COVID, but any time that you get a setback.
Absolutely. And setbacks are going to happen. If you think, like life, failure, they're failures. Failures happen. They grow you though, right? There's no better way to grow than through failure. But
yeah. Well, I know we're about out of time. Talk to me a little bit about what can people do to engage with not just your business, Just Devine, but if they want to follow you, engage with you, what does that look like?
Yeah, so you can follow us on all of our social medias, at Just Devine Properties on Facebook and Instagram. I'm live on there all the time, and it's not just about real estate. I'm a fly fisherman. I coach high school football at Hillsborough High School in New Jersey. I carve wood. We live on 18 acres out here, so I got to constantly do a ton of projects. So, it's our business, is us, and we want to show people, what we're doing, what we're into, that we're not just about real estate, but there's people behind the business, and I can relate to some of my customers through other things other than selling them or buying a house from them or renovating a house for them, whatever. So, and Devin Bravaco, who's also here at PODMAX, she's actually the event director of events over here. So big shout out to Devin for doing all this, Devin Bravaco. But it's been a pleasure, man. It was a pleasure meeting you. It was a pleasure having me on, and I loved your insight and best of luck to you, man. It was great to meet you.
Justin Balunsat on the podcast today. I will definitely throw in his social media links down in the episode description. Also, if you are a first-time listener, what the heck are you waiting on? Click that subscribe button. We'll keep bringing you good advice straight to wherever you're tuning in from. And also, if you enjoyed this episode, absolutely make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Hey, thanks for listening. We'll catch you later. Make sure you check out the other episodes from the PODMAX event. We'll see you. Take care.